And you're very welcome, Minister. I want to raise the Department of Education and action on unregulated seclusion and restraint practices relating to children with disabilities. And with the greatest respect to yourself, Minister, I do find it extremely disappointing that neither the Minister for Education, the Minister for Disabilities or the Minister for Children considers this issue important enough then to be here in person to discuss it. Inclusion Ireland published a discussion document last week shining a light on seclusion and restraint in schools in Ireland, and shares the stories of 14 children with a disability, some as young as 5 years of age. And as a result of this document that has been produced, I would have thought that government departments would have been reeling in an effort to try and react to the issues that have been raised. Inclusion Ireland is concerned that despite being asked by the National Council for Special Education on 3 occasions, the Department of Education has failed to provide best practice guidelines or to introduce reporting and monitoring protocols. And Paddy Connolly, who is the CEO of Inclusion Ireland, has said that the rights and welfare of children should be at the centre of all that happens in schools. On the issue of managing the use of seclusion and restraint, best practice includes support and training for staff, whole of school positive behaviour strategies, school leadership and external inputs such as child mental health or disability services. So, Minister, I would like to put you on notice that my colleague Senator Ríordáin will be introducing legislation on this matter, so your government is going to have to respond. I want to read into the record of the House, if I might, some of the cases that were outlined in this report, and the names have been changed in order to protect the identity of the children involved. One day I went to collect Brian from his special school and he was sitting on the sofa in reception crying. His arms were very sore and staff would not tell me what happened. Later Brian calmed down and could tell me that 2 special needs assistants had held him face down on the floor by his arms, which are now black and blue. Michael, who was 10 years of age at the time, wasn't allowed in the classroom of his Dublin school for 3 months. Instead, Michael had to work in an empty room next door to the room where his classmates were working. My daughter Jenny was restrained in a prone restraint, which is being held in a face-down position for 2 or 3 people. On 1 month this took place up to 50 times, and this went on for some time. William was restrained in his school transport by the escort with his head held down physically for the whole journey, which took 20 minutes. William said he found it hard to breathe. It was a painful experience. On other occasions, William's hands were held down just in case. Sean was restrained by a teacher when he was in senior infants. The teacher in question told me that I didn't have to worry about Sean's behaviour in school, as he had found a way to restrain him. Luke attended a special school and he told me that his teacher had locked him into a toilet. The school denied this when I complained. We moved into another school. A number of months later, I was contacted by TUSLA, as 2 more children had alleged the teacher had locked them into a toilet. An investigation followed but found that the teacher posed no risk to children, and the teacher returned to the school. Killian was locked into a small storage room with a small window. We were initially told the room would only ever be used as a last resort. The teacher put Killian into this locked room unattended for up to 4 or 5 hours for trivial reasons, such as not doing schoolwork quickly enough or talking in class. Now, Minister, these are real children. These are real testimonies from their parents. These are children with disabilities. Therefore, they are probably some of the most vulnerable children in our education system. Now, I would have thought the Department of Education, the Minister with special responsibility for disabilities, the Minister for Children, will be all over this report. Will be making statements in relation to how they're going to react to the report. And the reaction from Inclusion Ireland is one of exasperation as to lack of action from the department. I understand the stresses that teachers in this area work under, but what's in this report here, 14 case studies, is appalling, and I want to know what your government is going to do about it.
Minister.
To apologise to Senator Ríordáin. I'm here on behalf of Minister Cruton. I don't know about the other ministers in question. I was asked to take this morning, which I do. And I want to thank Senator Ríordáin for raising this very important issue. And I understand, I suppose, the impact that it has on him, has been a former teacher himself. And I'll go into the reply first, and I've taken some notes. I wish to firstly advise the Senator that the well-being and safety of children should be at the centre of all policies and practices in school. The Board of Management of each school is responsible for the care and safety of all the pupils in their school. Schools should supervise and support children who are distressed or out of control until they recover and are able to re-engage in the classroom. In some circumstances, this may mean the temporary removal of a child from the environment where problems have arisen. Schools owe a duty of care to all their students, and any actions taken in relation to managing behaviour must be proportionate. Schools are not required to report such interventions to the Department. The Education Welfare Services of Tuesday, which is now under the aegis of the Minister of Children and Youth Affairs, has developed the guidelines for schools and the Code of Behaviour, which all schools are required by law to have in place. The guidelines advise that specialised behaviour management strategies, such as the use of restriction, should not be used without expert advice, training and monitoring. In particular, the guidelines point to certain sanctions which are regarding to an inappropriate, including leaving a student in an unsupervised situation while in the care of the school. All parents must be made aware of the behaviour management strategy and employed by the school. There is a range of guidelines, advice and support available to schools, including for their local National Education Psychological Services and the NCSE support services. Training is also available for teachers and schools. The Department is currently working on the development of guidelines for schools on responding to crisis situations and complex student behaviour needs. These guidelines will be informed by advice received by NCSE. The Department will consult with the education partners on the guidelines over the coming months. It is anticipated that the guidelines will be finalised by the end of this school year. The guidelines will be underpinned by the principles such as intervention is never used for the purpose of discipline, that it should be applied proportionally and should last not only as long as necessary to de-escalate the situation. The guidelines will also underline the importance of continuing supervision for children during a crisis period, including matters related to behaviour. It is also expected that the guidelines will underline the importance of recording such incidents and how they should be managed. When a parent or any other person has concerns about the care or safety of a child in the school, they should report these concerns to the Board of Management or for the school in the first instance. Where a parent or other persons have a concern about welfare or protection of a child in a school, they may report the matter to a child protection concerns to TUSLA. In 2017, the Department received one child protection complaint which referred to concerns related to where the complaint was dealt with in accordance with the Department's procedures, including referral to TUSLA. There were no child protection complaints received in relation to restraint. In conclusion, I want to thank again the Senator for raising this important issue, and I will come back on some of the questions that he has.
Thank you, Minister. Supplementary, Senator.
Yeah, we see. Thanks, Minister, for your reply, but this sort of reply drives me absolutely around the twist. I mean, in the first paragraph, the reply that you've read out is a classic case of the Department of Education saying it's somebody else's problem. The Board of Management for each school is responsible for the care and safety of the pupils in their schools. Schools are not required to report such interventions to the Department, therefore, it's not really up to us. Again, as I mentioned earlier, Paddy Connolly, CEO of Seclusion Ireland, has already stated that the NCSE has asked on 3 occasions the Department of Education to provide best practice guidelines. It hasn't happened, and now in this reply it says that the NCSE are going to be responded to by June 2019. I get no sense, Minister, and again, this isn't your area of responsibility, so it's not your direct responsibility, so I accept that. But I want you to impress on the ministers responsible, Minister for Education, Minister for Disabilities, Minister for Children, that there is no sense of urgency from this one-page sheet of paper that I've just gotten from yourself. Basically, what I get from this is that everything's fine, everything is working kind of tickety-boo. There are ways for people to complain. We only really got one complaint, so I don't know what. There's absolutely nothing from this reply that makes me feel that the people who wrote this reply have actually read what I have read and read out into the record today, of children being locked into toilets, children having their face put down on bus transport, in classrooms, secluded into small rooms. I'm not, and nobody is suggesting that this is an easy job, but I would have thought that a report such as this would have made the department react in a very different way to this classic case of it's not really our responsibility, it's somebody else's responsibilities. We're looking at it and we'll come back to it in due course. I mean, if anybody in this House came across a child of theirs who'd been told they'd been locked in the toilet or gone through any of the issues that I have raised in this report, I'm quite sure they'll be held to pay. And I don't get any sense from this answer from yourself, Minister, that is the feeling from within the department. And again, I have to reiterate the fact that if this was really taken seriously, I think I'd have a minister here with responsibility for the area. So I'd ask you again, Minister, to impress on those responsible to do something a little more urgent and impressive, and give us a sense that you're taking this matter seriously. Because from this, if I was a mother or a father of one of these children with disabilities who have gone through these events, and I produced this response for them, I don't think they'd be very impressed.
Thank you, Senator. Minister.
Thanks, Ríordáin. And again to Senator Ríordáin, I will relay all of the frustration and concerns that you have, and will outline the seriousness of some of the cases that you've raised. But however, in saying that, I do believe as well in the reply it does state clearly that there is a process in place, and from my very small experience in the education system in boards of management, I'm always conscious of the fact that people do have to make a complaint, and they do have to be dealt with within school, within the broader sense of the school itself that it's in. However, nobody wants to go back to the days, Cathaoirleach, where young children, whether with a disability or not a disability, are being punished for very different reasons, whether it's being restrained or locked in rooms. I don't think it's appropriate as a member of the Dáil. I don't think it's appropriate as a parent and as a grandparent that any child should be put through some strenuous difficulties in school. And I will relay back in a very clear message the frustration and the concerns raised by Senator, and I'll bring it to his attention on my way back up into the Dáil.
Thank you, Minister, and thank you, Senator.